Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would like to continue on with our exploration through the box set of the Criterion Collection that was released earlier this year of 2020, which is this set, the complete films of Agnes Varda. And today specifically I'd like to focus in on that part of the set which is a Blu-ray disc having certain films on it designated Program 4, and the title given to such Program 4 is this: RUE DAGUERRE. So the two films that appear on this Program 4 Blu-ray disc, which is given the title RUE DAGUERRE, are first from 1975, the film which is called DAGUERREOTYPES, and second, which is the film from 2003, LION VOLATIL. And there are certain supplements associated with each of those titles, and I will go through those very generally later on in this video. But for purposes of the Program 4, we have these two films. The first of which is the fascinating work from 1975, Daguerreotypes. This is a film that comes at a very interesting part of Varda's career, and you can find more information about that particular aspect in, for example, the essay that's included as part of this book, which is part of the set from the Criterion Collection. But this came in the mid-70s, and so Varda had not made a film in a number of years, but an offer came from German television for her to make a film. According to the materials here, she was given carte blanche, total freedom, in order to come up with the concept or idea of what this film would eventually be. And it eventually became what we know as Daguerreotypes. This word, Daguerreotype, is itself very, I think, filled with meaning and has a lot of meanings, which makes for, I think, a great reflection as to how the film itself, I think, can be seen as being quite full of various meanings, just as many of Varda's works are, as we have explored thus far. So the first thing is that we have a film that is focusing in on a particular place in Paris, the 14th arrondissement, 14e. And this is the area where Varda herself lived, and this is an area that she knows very well. It's a street area where there are a number of shops and a number of storekeepers and owners of stores, and also frequent visitors and people who live in the area and the like. So in essence, this film serves as a kind of portrait of this place, as shown in the way in which the film shows us the various stores, what might be described as being quote-unquote mom and pop stores, and the very, I think, humble and down-to-earth way that these people carry out their business how they interact with their customers and the residents of the particular area, and also how they interact one-on-one with Varda's camera, because there are moments too where we see many of these people talk to us directly via the camera. They talk to us about their life experiences, where they are from, and what their circumstances were leading up to, say, their relationships, their marriages, and their lives. So in that way, the film seems to be operating on one level as a kind of documentary-like portrait in cinematic terms. However, and this is one of the great things about Varda's cinema, as we have seen thus far, there is also always an element of very genuinely applied poetic and cinematic senses of earnest authorship on the part of Varda. And so therefore, this is not necessarily a handheld, fly-on-the-wall type of documentary, but rather the shots are very composed. They seem to have a certain sense of, well, some of the shots anyway have a certain sense of planning in terms of positioning, in terms of how people go in and out of frame, and the like. At the same time, there is a spirit or sense of spirit of spontaneity in the air. Sometimes there might be, as some of the supplements indicate, there might be an instance where a customer who was not planned as part of the filming maybe randomly appears in the store and just wants to buy something, not necessarily showing or looking towards the camera or any sort of thing of that nature. So this is also to suggest that at the same time there is a great deal of spontaneity that seems to be in the air, and you can really sense that as a viewer. So this is to say that as a film viewing experience, it does feel like it has the spontaneity of a documentary, but it also has the feel of a film by Agnes Varda as a portrait, and Varda is the painter or the artist thereof. So, and we've seen this really lovely dichotomy displayed in other works by Varda in the programs leading up to such program 4. In other words, there have been films where maybe there is a documentary or real life feel to a film, while at the same time there is a sense of the fiction and certain narrative, cinematic fiction devices that are employed, etc. And so we do understand that this is a consistent way in Varda's filmography, that Varda seems to be engaging with the material, engaging with the subject matter. But all that is never at all to suggest anything other than Varda's love and devotion to this particular place. She looks at it not necessarily wholly 100% in terms of a historical overview of the place. In other words, she doesn't necessarily use her cinema to try to track the historical progress of one particular place over time. While there are certain historical references made, that's true, it seems that her focus is, on the other hand, a kind of look at a place and the people that occupy that place, and how those people that live there end up being the place, and how the place ends up being them. And in turn, and we'll see this applied very effectively when we go through the supplements, how time and the passage of time can really either alter that or change that, or otherwise make us realize just how significant the connections are between the people that live there and the place itself. So I think that is at the heart of a lot of Varda's work, but in particular about this daguerreotype. Of course, also I should mention that the word daguerreotype, which is the title, it of course has, I think, many different applications or meanings. It is, it seems obviously to be, for example, a reference to RUE DAGUERRE. It also is a reference to daguerreotype and Daguerre, Louis Daguerre, and the photographic process. that is associated with daguerre, and the use of copper plates and silver sheets and a mercury-based ionized gas, and to create images that are created and made permanent as a sort of a photographic process. And so this also is suggestive of the fact that we are dealing with the capturing of a moment and a place in time that is living in the moment as we see it expressed in the film. But of course we are seeing it many years after the fact, and so maybe that gives us further ability to realize and understand the kind of sense of permanence of the cinema that's capturing these moments, but the impermanence of the moments themselves. I don't know if that makes any sense. And so there is a real, almost loving way that the cinema is gained even greater importance or prominence in terms of the way in which it is capturing a really beautiful living moment of many of these people who are day-to-day people and workers and human beings in this particular part of the world at this time. So I find that connection very significant. And last but not least, of course, there are many moments where, as I indicated earlier, Varda's cinema becomes very creative, very poetic. There are also instances of references to magic and magicians, and the idea of what we see versus what is real. And not to say that there's always a sense of falseness or a kind of enigma necessarily, but there is a playfulness, let me put it that way. There's a playfulness at play here, and there is a playfulness that's exhibited while at the same time an earnest, honest approach to cinema that always is in good faith and that always gives full attention to the people that are being shown, their lives, their hearts, their faces, the way they look, the way their eyes move back and forth, the way they speak, what they say, or in some instances what they don't say. And sometimes those can be very, very powerful moments indeed. And so I think it's all here in this remarkable film, again from 1975, Daguerreotypes. Now, with that, and before we go on to the next film, I'd like to just focus in on Daguerreotypes' supplements. And Daguerreotypes has its own section on this one disc, and then if you go into that section and you click on it, you can find further access to the supplements associated with Daguerreotypes. And there are quite a number of them, and they are all really excellent. First is a supplement which is called RUE DAGUERRE in 2005. And this is a short documentary, approximately 21 minutes. And this is where Agnes Varda goes back and films this particular area, 2005. So it would be 30 years after Daguerreotypes, which is in 1975. And so we get some interesting surprises along the way. The setting is the same, but maybe there are some minor, or in some instances quite major and significant changes to the backdrop, to the people that are depicted. Who is there now? What stores are there now? And what are their stories? Do they have any connections with the earlier work, Daguerreotypes? We might find that the answer to that question is indeed yes. You're going to have to watch the film to find out. But there are a number of surprises like that along the way. And we also get great discussion from Varda herself and her approach, her views then, and what they are now. And also we get a nice dialogue or conversation, Nourrit à vivre, and the idea of exploration of the camera work technique and how that really evolved and how that really took shape when making Daguerreotypes, because that's one of the very important aspects of Daguerreotypes. It's camera work and how it seems to be capturing many things, and many of which are quite spontaneous. I mean, there's an episode that I think Varda mentions in this RUE DAGUERRE in 2005 about the randomness of some of the moments in daguerreotypes. So you have to see this. It's a great companion to daguerreotype. It's also a great film in and of itself. It's another example of Varda's concerns about place, time, and people, and the stories and humanity that are associated with those aspects, and how Varda herself engages with them. Great stuff. And there's a moment too where Varda is reading some letters, which might be, it's another way too, interesting how she's reading them and how she's reacting to them almost in real time. So those are just examples of how great I think this supplement is. So it's the documentary here called RUE DAGUERRE in 2005. Next we have an interview, again from 2005, called Pain, Peinture et Accordéon, which can be translated into English as bread, painting, and accordion. And this is approximately 8 minutes. And this is a focus on the local bakery, and just focusing in on the decor, the look, paintings, the paintings of the title, and also pain, or bread. Bread is also part of the title. And there's also some discussion about accordions and the accordion music area, which is referred to later on in this particular interview. And so this is again another example of Varda, her concern about space and time and people, and those who occupy it now versus those who were there back then. And there are differences along the way, and so this kind of interview or exploration shows yet again Varda's concerns and her great workings with notions of time and space and changes, and how changes affect people, and what happens over the passage of years. In particular, again, linked to this particular part of the city, RUE DAGUERRE. So another great one to take a look at, bread, painting, and accordion, Pain, Peinture et Accordéon. And that's not all, because then we have a 6-minute program which is called Daguerreotype Objet Photographique, or Daguerreotype Photographic Objects. This is again 6 minutes. This is also from 2005. And this is a really interesting interview with experts in the notion of the technique, the photographic process technique of daguerreotype, and examples of this. And so this is actually, I think, another aspect of the use of, or the application of this phrase, has vis-a-vis the title of the film, and the sense of the photographic process capturing a moment in time and place that perhaps is no longer there. Or maybe, to put it in more concrete terms, the place is there and it was always there, but there's something about capturing it in this way that creates a frozen moment in time. And if you think therefore about the things that are captured in this so-called frozen moment in time, we realize that perhaps something that is this kind of captured image really holds a lot of secrets and a lot of details about the human experience, especially when we realize that people actually lived in these places during various points in time as captured in these photographic processes. And so I think that is a very nice, not just metaphoric link with daguerreotype and cinema in general, but also really the sense of time and place and people that is at the heart of Varda's cinema, in particular at the heart of daguerreotype. So in that sense, this kind of explanation as to what the process is and the state of the collecting of these objects, I think is really very fascinating. So worth checking out as well. Finally, there is a footage, and this is of a music festival event that took place in 2005. I think it's indicated June 2005 on the Rue Daguerre. And so approximately 3 minutes, there are some shots of people dancing in the street, musicians playing, and the like. So once again, this is a lived-in place. It's a place that is filled with people who are there, who are alive, and just living life in the context of this music festival showing. So another great example of how this is a lived-in place, and yet another perspective as to a different point in time or different way in which the place is living and alive. There are different people that are portrayed than who we might have seen in the other works, Daguerreotypes included. But still, this is a place filled with living people, and Varda is part of this environment. So another great example of this shown in the music festival. The other film that is included as part of this program for Blu-ray disc is the film from 2003. It's a short film. It's called LION VOLATIL, which I understand can be translated into The Vanishing Lion. And the environmental focus of this particular work is the Lion Belfort, the Lion of Belfort, which is part of the 14th or 14e arrondissement, part of Paris. And so this is, again, linked to Varda and where she lived and Rue Daguerre. So this is yet another example of a film linked to Rue Daguerre and talking about or somehow discussing or otherwise playing a part in cinematic terms with the discussion of the importance of environment and place. This film, however, is it is a film, or it's a short work that is about a particular sort of romance or romantic comedy type of narrative, and about a man and a woman and their interactions, and how their interactions are further enlightened upon, or they're further made, I think, more expressed vis-a-vis the place and where they are. That is the 14th, and the lion, the regal lion of Belfort, which figures into the proceedings both in visual terms and also metaphorical terms. So this is a very interesting short film that has a romance story at its heart. There are lovely touches that are very much part of Varda's cinema. There are some really lovely callbacks, one could say, to the notions of use of magic and foreseeing the future. I mean, we've seen uses of magic in Daguerreotypes. We've seen this notion of fortune telling in, say, Cleo from 5 to 7. And so this seems to be part of the Varda fabric of cinema, if you will. And there is a sense of the witty and the creative, and Varda herself winking at the audience and the like. So I love the sense of the creative that's interwoven into this. There's also the way in which the place is shown to be inhabited by people, and it is a living, breathing place, of course, and this is in keeping with the contents that we've seen thus far in Program 4. There is also the way in which we focus in on relationships, or specific relationships that form the process, if you will, of this cinema or this film viewing experience. And we see the creative uses of visual tricks and imagery that are employed vis-a-vis the actual landscape itself, and that's where the lion of the title and of this particular part of the city comes into play in a very special and creative way. So this is another way to say that I think in this film, among many other things, Varda, as the cinematic artist, is really showing us how she is using the environment that is obviously so important to her and giving us a lovely lived-in feel of a story, while at the same time employing her beautiful cinematic magic tricks to great effect, and how that seems to show us as viewers just how much she is in love with this part of the city, the way that she thinks that there are some creative modes of expression vis-a-vis the city and the environment itself, and how that plays out in the context of her cinema overall. So in that sense, I think this is a very, very engaging work, and it's great to have it as a kind of double bill, if you will, with the Daguerreotype and Program 4. So wonderful thing to have there. So this is LION VOLATIL. And the supplement that's included with this film is a very brief introduction given by Varda in 2007 about the place, and she's very specific about this particular landmark. And she delivers her comments in a beautifully Varda-esque type of way. A lovely short introduction, so worth checking out. But that, therefore, is the way in which Program 4 pans out. So as I say, on Program 4 we have Daguerreotype from 1975 and Le Lion Volatile from 2003, which is indicated here in this set, like so. So another great place to stop along the way as you're progressing through your journey through the works of Agnes Varda. This is another essential place. It's also part of Varda, who she was and who she is. She obviously was a part of this community as well as filming this community. So this is also another indication of Varda's cinema is Varda herself. And what a great expression of that as found in these two films in this Program 4, RUE DAGUERRE. Okay, my friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. I really appreciate it. Stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.